Welcome to Relationship Equity, a podcast that explores how successful people cultivate meaningful connections with others in their personal and professional lives. Learn from the stories, insights, and advice of leaders, innovators, and influencers who have built strong bonds with their teams, their customers, their communities, and their families. Here's Richard Walker.
I'm back with Zach Mercurio, author of the book, The Power of Mattering. We've been discussing Zach's personal journey from a disengaged employee in advertising to a researcher committed to helping people and organizations foster purpose and connection. Zach, in part one, you mentioned the mattering deficit in society. What does that term mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about how many people feel invisible and unseen and lonely, what happens is when people don't feel that they matter, they don't act like they matter.
Right.
We have a lot of problems, big, complex problems. And we actually need more of people's unique gifts and perspectives and wisdom than ever. And we're in a place where more people than ever feel that they can't see those gifts. For example, if you're anybody and you want someone to have a purpose, a contribution, they first have to believe they're worthy of contributing. If you want someone to use their talents and strengths, they first have to believe they have them. If you want people to share their voice, give their ideas, they first have to believe their voice is significant. Again, if you want someone to care, they first have to feel cared for. And there's a lot of social ignorance that's happening. We brush by people all day long. I was just in an airport yesterday, and it's astounding to me how many people brush by the airport janitor without even looking them in the eye when they go right in. It's amazing to me how many people just treat the security officer as a transaction, an inconvenience, not a person. What we find with mattering is that it happens in small interactions. So you can actually address the loneliness epidemic in your next interaction. Because again, the opposite of loneliness is not having more people around you. It's feeling that you matter to the people around you.
Right.
And it comes down to very small interactions. So while I think the mattering deficit is causing a lot of languishing, it's causing a lot of disengagement in solving big ideas. People feel what's called learned helplessness, where it doesn't matter what I do, nobody's going to listen to me. It doesn't matter how I vote, nothing's going to change. It doesn't matter what I do in my job, nothing's going to matter. That's called learned helplessness. It's when your environment conditions you to believe that what you do or don't do won't matter. But I think there's a way to change that. And it starts in your next interaction. What we've distilled this, over the last 5 years, we've asked people that question. When do you most feel that you matter to other people? When do you most feel that you matter to a leader, to people at work? And we found that there are 3 commonalities with almost everybody we interview, everybody we survey. And that's that people feel noticed. They feel seen and heard.
Right.
They feel affirmed. They feel that their unique gifts make a unique difference. And that they feel needed. They feel indispensable and irreplaceable. And this is very important. I think this last one.
Right.
When people feel replaceable, we shouldn't be surprised that they act replaceable.
Right.
We shouldn't be surprised that they don't show up, that they don't commit, that they'll go look for a job up the street for an extra 25 cents on the hour.
Right.
Because we've said, hey, we just need warm bodies in here. Or we've said things like, don't forget that you're replaceable at work. Or we can get anybody to do this job. Never forget that. But that's antithetical to human psychology. So noticed, affirmed, and needed. And there are practices we can learn. We can turn those into habits to re-engineer our everyday interactions to fill this mattering deficit, which I believe, and data is showing, is at the source of our division. It's at the source of people acting out, because when people feel insignificant, 2 things happen. They either withdraw, so they isolate. We've talked about that. Quiet quitting, for example, was the inevitable withdrawal response to people feeling insignificant in their organizations, or they act out in desperation, complaining, blaming, protesting. Hey, look, I matter more than you think.
Yeah. I know that's your framework, and it's a very powerful one. It really is. One of the things you said a little bit earlier, I want to go back to your analogy that you used in the airport. Here's what I'm going to challenge every single person to do when, after hearing this in their daily you go about doing what you do, is that the next time you open a door, look behind you and see if anybody's behind you. And you want those little things, I can't tell you, Zach, how much it drives me crazy, of having a door unintentionally slammed in my face because they didn't look behind me. Such a simple thing to do. I mean, I always say I learned a lot from my parents, and that's such a simple thing. Common courtesy, look behind you, open the door, let somebody else through. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that and I've seen my kids do that. And people are kind of astounded by it. Why? It's such a simple human thing to do, a respect for other people, to open the door and let them through before you.
We're in a hurry, and hurry and care cannot coexist.
Hurry and care cannot coexist. I don't know if I would agree with that because I'm always in a damn hurry. I go 100 miles an hour, but I feel like
you can't think about something. You can't care for anything if you don't understand it, whether it's a plant, a car, or a person. Understanding takes time, and it takes presence, and it takes showing up. I do agree with you, though. What I want to highlight about what you just said is so important, because that's part of noticing people. One of our first studies was with a group of university cleaners.
Noticing.
We studied how janitors come to experience meaning in their work. And one of the things that they repeatedly said, I remember one woman, she said to me, "Zach, I'm sick of being brushed by. People just brush by me. Building users just brush by me." And she said, "All we want is to be acknowledged." Right. So I think that when I say hurry and care can't coexist, I mean that to hold the door open, you have to stop. You have to sacrifice a little bit of your time to notice someone. And if you want to go deeper, you have to stop for even more and ask that person, "What's your name?
Yes.
Who's important to you in your life?"
Yeah.
That your delivery driver you have a decision to make when they come and take your package and you see them leave. You can wait for them to leave. Or you can go out onto your front porch if you have one, and you can give them the gift of showing them that you see them by saying, "Hey, before you leave, I didn't catch your name. I've been waiting for this package. I need it. It's a computer part that I've been needing to set up my office, and I wanted to thank you for delivering that today." If you just do that, take that time, you will see the power of what we're talking about. You will see someone shocked, stunned to be seen. It can change
And
everything.
I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, it's what you were saying are such simple concepts, but getting back to your hurry and think, I think it's a hurry of thought. It isn't even a time thing. It's not considering. It's all the oldest adage in the world: "Do unto others as you'd expect them to do to you." I changed that slightly in my verbiage. It's do unto others as you would like for them to do to you, not expect. As you would like for them to do. I would like for somebody to hold a door open for me, so therefore I will open one for them. It's simple human concepts. Now you take everything you've just said and you apply it in the corporate world, especially with big organizations where you've got this big list of titles. You got the CEO all the way down to somebody that's their first day of work in a very hands-on blue collar position. You take that concept, and if it's maybe it's nirvana, but if every company culture they applied your concepts, just think how good it would be to work in those places where people, they respect everybody the same way. Now, let's face it, there are certain roles and certain jobs in companies that are more important than the others. But that's the job. No person's more important. We're all people.
That's a great
We're
point.
all damn people. The jobs, and I think people need to understand the difference between the job they have and the person they are.
Absolutely. And what you're making me think of is I was doing some work with the US Army, and I got to work with one of the people who does the special forces officer training. I mean, these are some of the most lethal, high performing units. And we did a session on mattering with them. And afterwards, this guy comes up to me and he says, "Zach, a lot of people think that the key ingredient of a lethal, high performing unit behind enemy lines is toughness." He said, "But it's not, it's love." He said, "No one will sacrifice for me if I don't know their kids' names. No one will support their team member if I don't support them.
Right.
And I think we miss out on this component of actually caring for people. And a couple of things with this noticing practice, because I like that we're talking about this, is another thing that you can do is simply just ask better questions. Right.
Right.
We tend to ask questions like, "How are you? How was your day?" And we think
Right.
we're being nice and doing the
Yeah.
right thing. Those are greetings, they're not questions. And
Yeah.
I have a 10 and a 7-year-old. I travel a lot. If someone asks me how I'm doing, my brain can't compute living the last 10 hours of a complex human life. So I just say, "Good, you?" That
Yeah.
doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Like, but if someone asks me, "What is your attention today? What's been most meaningful to you today? What are you struggling with today? What have you been working on today?" I can answer you. I can't tell you how many leaders I've seen open meetings with. "I hope everybody's doing well." If I'm not doing well, the last thing I need is your hope, right? I need your support. Or
Right.
or if leaders will say, "How's everybody doing? Good?" Imagine if I'm on that team and I'm not good. Am I going to raise my
Oh.
hand and say, "Not me"? Right?
Right.
So we have these norms of just keeping the transaction going, but I think we can ask better questions and check in on actually how the people are doing, observing the details of their lives, of noting things down about them, sharing back. One of the practices that I have once I started learning about this is on my one-on-ones, I just write, "Don't forget to ask about dot dot dot."
Right. Yeah.
And it helps me because, hey, look, I teach what I need to hear the most. I'm very
Yeah.
busy. I got a lot going on. In fact, I'm a
Yeah.
rational thinker. I'm go, go, go. But if I have that environmental trigger to say, don't forget to ask about dot, dot, dot. If I don't have anything
Yeah.
written down, I know I need to be a better noticer. If I
Yeah.
have something written down, I can start the conversation by saying, hey, I wanted to, I wrote down that your kid was starting baseball this weekend. How did that go? When you do
Right.
that,
Yeah.
there's magic in being remembered.
Yes, there is 100%. But let me add to that a little bit. Especially in sales. I mean, people know you've got the CRM systems and the buyer knows that they're supposed to create a personal relationship with them and find out stuff about them. When you engage like that, it has to be authentic. And
Absolutely.
it can't just be bullshit to try and pretend to create a relationship with somebody. And that's where the in-person stuff is so powerful, because you can look into somebody's eyes and you can see where their body language and facial expressions, if they're actually being authentic, if they really truly care. I mean, we both know people who we know truly care, because they've got no benefit from you answering their questions. They just really genuinely care. We also know those that don't really care, but know the question they're supposed to ask, and they'll ask them and not really listen to your answers. They're just asking because they want to ask. So my point being, if you don't operate this way now, and if you really want to create relationships that matter, you have to truly want to hear the answers and truly care about how somebody's really feeling, how they're doing, and more importantly, what you can do to help them. And it could be something simple. What can I do to help you today?
Yeah.
You could take the garbage out for me. All right, I'll go do it. So it's that the complications of human interactions and human dynamics is fascinating to me, because we all view the world through our own lens, right?
Mm.
And I believe that most of us are fundamentally selfish. And I don't mean that in a bad way. We've all got our own agendas. We all have to put food on the table. Everybody's got to make dinner at night for the kids. If you've got a family, we've all got our own goggles on in the world that we see. And I have to tell myself, because I run 100 miles an hour all the time, is to slow myself down and not be in a hurry and just take time you've got friends here on the island, and they're wonderful people. We've known them for 25 years. And they remember everything from the last conversation. We might not have seen them for 3 or 4 months, but they remember conversations that we've had about our families, and vice versa, because we truly, genuinely care about the welfare of each other's families.
Mm.
Shouldn't it be the same in the corporate world?
Absolutely. And I love the point about authenticity, because you have to do it authentically. But I also don't want people to get stuck there and say that if I don't do it authentically, I shouldn't do it. I think
Right.
I get a
Good
lot of
point.
people that say, like, I'm not a people person, or I'm
No.
introverted, or um caring is an action. And sometimes motivation follows action. So there's some great research in, like, exercise science that shows that the best way to start exercising is actually just to set a timer for 10 minutes and to go do it. And then right when that timer goes off, just 10 minutes, stop doing it. Make yourself stop. Because what ends up happening if you do it for 10 minutes, all of a sudden you'll say, oh, I could do a little more of that. I don't just 10 minutes. And you keep doing that, just 10 minutes. And the research shows that sometimes action precedes motivation. So just start.
Interesting.
Start. If you're listening to this and you're saying, gosh, I really should check in with this person, put it on your calendar. One of the things I always say is schedule your good intentions. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'd like to be an uncaring leader today.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
If there's one thing that anybody should, in my opinion, take from the conversation with others thus far, it's just that. Schedule your good intentions. Put it on your calendar to call somebody and take genuine interest in that. I love that. Schedule your good intentions. Yeah, and everybody on the planet should do that.
You mentioned at the beginning, Zach, this is simple. It's common sense. It's not common practice. If it was common practice, 40% of the workforce would not say that 40% would not say they had someone who cared about them as a person in work. It's not common practice, right? And one of the things you said was really important. I think you said people need to see, how they connect with something bigger as well. It's simple. One of the major practices we find that people use is they affirm people. Everybody you interact with has at least 4 gifts, right? Everybody has strengths. Everybody has purpose, the impact they make. Everybody has a unique perspective, and everybody has unique wisdom, what only they can teach you. And one of the things I think that we can do if we have interactions like this is we actually illuminate in other people what they don't see in themselves.
100%.
And you mentioned that we're with our goggles on, right? We're looking at ourselves. But we become who we are with other people.
Right.
It's called, in the research, it's called reflected appraisals. We actually build our belief system by putting things out into the world, having it reflected back to us, and then it builds the evidence of who we are, which builds our belief in who we are. And that's why leaders are so powerful, because you can give people the evidence of their significance. And one way to do that is really in those interactions, showing them, naming the gifts you see in people, naming their strengths, naming their perspectives.
Right.
And just that can go a long way. Another small thing everybody can do here is just give a better thank you. Anytime you say thank you, go one step further and tell them how they made the difference for you and show them the difference they made.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but profound. And like you said, schedule your good intentions. You got to put it on your calendar, got to make it a habit.
Yeah. One of the things that dawned on me as well, and again, the thing about common sense, we know it's just not that common and not commonplace. Some of the things that are commonsensical, but I always go back to something I was taught a long, long time ago. So for people that don't, they're thinking to themselves, well, I'm not very good at asking people questions. And I don't feel comfortable, and I don't feel, confident enough to go and engage with people to see how they're doing, what I can do to help them. I'll ask you, is it a skill? As some people naturally do that. Is it a skill if people don't feel as though it's a natural skill they have? Is it something they can develop, and should they?
Yes, I believe you can develop the skill. I also believe that it takes a lot of courage to do something different, and it takes some vulnerability. One of the things I recommend to people who are feeling that way, there are a lot of people who feel that. I feel that way about some of the things that I teach, that I read in the research that work. I feel that way. One of the things that is really powerful is to share what you're trying to do with the person you're trying to do it for. So for example, and you can blame it on me and Richard. You can blame it on this podcast. You can say, I listen to this podcast. I know I should be checking in with you. So I'm going to start asking some questions that may be a little different than what you're used to.
Yeah.
I don't
know. It's an upfront contract.
I don't know how it's going to come across, but just know that I'm trying.
Yeah.
And let me know if it's working. Honestly.
Well, one of the things I would suggest, I love that. One of the things I would suggest if people are going to take action and going to do that, do it with somebody that you know to start with. Do it with somebody that, because everybody's got a friend, somebody that's there's mutual trust. You play it safe to start with. Do it with your spouse. Do it with a family member, and practice. Because like any other skill, you got to practice it. You got to go to the damn driving range.
Absolutely,
the best golfers are on the driving range every day.
Like if you're trying to eat better, and someone's bringing you donuts and you don't have one, but you don't say why, It can be offensive, right?
Right.
But if you
Right.
say, "Hey, I love donuts, but I'm really trying to eat better, so I'm not gonna have one, but thank you." It's totally different.
Right.
The same happens when somebody comes to you and you say one of the things I recommend people doing is check in on people's energy levels. Like, there's a
Right.
technique called a green, yellow, red check-in, right? Green means you're good, you're in flow. Yellow means you're kind of offline. Red means you're completely offline. And I'd
Right.
encourage teams to do that because it's one of the most evidence-based ways to get data on how people are. Comes from the military. It's powerful, but people struggle to get over the hump of doing it. And one of the things I say is just before you do it, just say, "Hey, we're going to try this thing," and you can use some humor. We're going to try
Right.
this thing because
Right.
I want to know how everybody's doing. It
Right.
may seem a little bit silly at first, but can we just try it for 2 weeks? If it's
Right.
not working, we'll do something else. But what I'm not going to negotiate on is I'm not going to negotiate on having a process to understand how you're doing.
Right.
So we can determine what that looks like, and just saying that can be an intervention in and of itself with people. So I
Yeah.
think we need to approach this stuff with a little bit of levity, a little bit of humility,
Right.
invite people into our process, and that's how we make change. I think the best teamwork happens when people work on themselves in front of one another.
Right. And be vulnerable,
Yeah.
willing to hurt.
I got to meet just yesterday, one of the commanders of the Blue Angels. They're a US
Oh,
Navy
wonderful. Oh, yeah.
demonstration group, and he told me they have one rule, and it's called to fail together. And I love that. Fail together, because what it means is that we're trying we're trying together. We're trying different things, and I think that we need to take that mindset with when it comes to reskilling ourselves to care about the people around us. Stop being afraid of looking soft. Stop being afraid of these ideas that this will somehow sacrifice performance down the line or it's inefficient. And start trying. Start trying these things, and you'll see the power of this, as I think we've tried to express here in this conversation.
Right. And I think so going back to something we talked about earlier as well, with some of the things to consider for people that really want to hone this skill. And it was something that was said to me by my boss many, many years ago. And it's something I have to tell myself every day when I look in the mirror. You've got 2 ears and one mouth. Use them in that proportion. so, so ask, and what's something you said earlier that's so powerful as well, is ask questions and ask the right questions. And then the other part of asking the right questions is not a simple matter of, okay, question one,
Right.
how are you doing today? Question two,
Right.
oh, well, so it's a matter of, it's often the follow-up questions to how the answer comes. And this is the complexity of human dynamics, because the other part of it as well is ask questions with the intent of listening and hearing, not with responding. Now, don't get me wrong, we got to respond, but how quickly we respond and how we respond will determine the quality of that human interaction. And especially with a brand new person that you're trying to get to know, that first interaction is so important. And when you walk away from that first interaction, the question is, do they like you? Do they think that you cared about them? Were you the self-centered? What kind of person are you? And a lot of that comes with, and it's like interviewing as well. Often the person that gets the job, it isn't the answers they've given. And I coach a lot of people in interviews. It's the kind of questions they ask, when they ask them, and how they ask them. Questioning techniques are so complex in both business and in personal life. And I believe that some people are naturally very good at it. I mean, I've been in business and in the services business for 100 years now, and you never stop learning, because every single person that we interact with is different. They've all got their own, their own motivations, and every single person matters, but they have to feel like they matter to you. I
Yeah.
went on a long diatribe there, Zach.
No,
That's
because with the second part of noticing people is making sure they feel heard.
right.
And going beyond that, there's a difference between being physically listened to. Like, all of our training on listening has been like, keep your mouth shut, nod,
Right.
say, "Mhm," right?
Right.
But someone can be physically listened to and not feel heard.
Right.
People feel heard when they do what you were just saying. when you look for the meaning behind the words. When I
Right.
notice, hey, Richard, you may have said that you had a good podcast conversation, but you said, I had a good podcast conversation.
Right.
Wait,
Tone.
Richard, I noticed that, the way you said that, I got that you may have been feeling a little bit not satisfied with that. Tell
Right.
tell me more about that. That is a skill.
Yeah.
And
It is.
and you said, I've been in the services industry, so I know how to ask these questions. This is so important because it brings us back full circle. If when you're in people are seem like they're naturals because they've been in situations to hone the skill.
Right.
Like,
I'm
it's
not a
not
natural. Far from
a
it.
lot of people say like, "Oh, these people are just good at asking questions." No, they've been in situations where they've had to ask questions. I ask CEOs, like, how they got to where they are a lot. I'm really fascinated, about that. Almost all of them say that they were put in situations where they had to lead something repeatedly, right? It could have been a family, it could have been a club in college, it could have been something, it could have been a sports team, but they were in these situations. If you want to create leaders in your organizations that do these things, put them in situations where they can use the skills to care.
100%. And when we talk after this, Zach, and I'm looking forward to that, and I will, by the way, tell people, and my tone of voice will be such that they'll realize that we had a great conversation, or at least I feel like I have from my end anyway. But I was a bricklayer the first 6 years of my working life. A very small town I grew up in. And that world there was very, very different than the world I live in now. But I've learned so much in those years in terms of relationships and what matters to people. And how I can, and I got into the youth service while I was in the, on the building site in the evenings and weekends. I got into the youth service. And that was a very, very different kind of work that I did while I was on the building sites. So to your point, some people are natural at things. I mean, but again, I go back, I'm a big golfer. You go back to the best golfers in the world, they've got that natural skill set. But the best golfers are on the driving range every damn day.
That's why the best leaders repeatedly, daily hone the fundamental skills of being human. Because at the end of the day, a leader's craft is people.
100%.
And
100%.
leaders hone their craft. They listen to podcasts like this, they read, they study the craft. And that's why when you think about your organization or you think about your leadership development approach to developing other leaders in your organizations, are you honing the craft of making sure that people feel seen, heard, valued, and needed? I mean, that's the foundation. Those are the fundamentals. My kid loves football, watching football, American football. I took him to a training camp once, and he wanted to see the quarterbacks because he thought they were the coolest, and they were the most boring to watch. They did the same footwork over and over and over again. For 2 hours, they were working on footwork.
Right.
They didn't
Right.
throw
Every
the
day.
ball once.
Right.
I think great leaders do that when it comes to the skills to be human to other people. That's what great leaders do. They focus on the fundamentals of being human.
I think you're 100% spot on correct. I completely agree with that. I think the other thing that they do is they realize, although again, I separate between the role people are in and them as a person.
Yeah.
The top leaders, they treat everybody exactly the same way as a person. And, I've said this before, it's been said about me that I treat everybody with the same disrespect. Everybody. Disrespect. Because I give a lot of people shit. I don't care whether you're the CEO or whatever it is that you do.
Yes.
Because I like, but I want it back as well.
Right.
And that's how I was brought up. Treat everybody the same way. Every single person you run across in life the same way, regardless of their post in life, regardless if they're, your best friend who's a trauma surgeon, or people that I spend a lot of time with here on the island that live on in North Captiva that don't have big fancy jobs. Yeah, but it does not matter to me. They're humans and they've got very similar needs to everybody else, and they're people and they matter.
When you look at the research on the highest performing sports teams and highest performing coaches, I think athletics are a great place to look at all this as a microcosm.
100%, yeah.
And one of the things that you will find repeatedly is that the best coaches see the person before the athlete.
Yeah. Herb Brooks, 1980, U.S. Olympics.
Yeah. U.S. Olympics,
Unbelievable.
the New Zealand, the All Blacks, Mike
Right.
Krzyzewski with Duke.
Yeah.
They obsessively saw the human being before they saw the athlete. And they showed, even Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots here in the States.
Right.
He had this saying, do your job. He obsessively would show people how the small things that they did were needed by somebody else. And that it was about seeing how you were needed. That was the foundation for everything. And when you see like high performing teams, like the Blue Angels I talked about, or special forces, in these really high pressure situations, it starts with trust. It starts with feeling seen and heard.
Yeah.
It starts with knowing what your gifts are. But that last piece is you have to know and you have to feel that you as a human being and what you bring is needed.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to finish on. I could talk with you all day long, Zach. I think with the work that you're doing is brilliant. You're making a big difference in the world. And I can't thank you enough for your time. And I'd love to reconnect with you to talk how we can help each other going forwards to try and make this world of ours a little bit better place. How about that?
That sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot, Zach. Appreciate it.
This has been Relationship Equity. If you want to take your career, your business, or your personal relationships to the next level, reach out to Richard at yorksolutions.net. You can also get Richard's book, Relationship Equity, your cornerstone investment to great gains in business and life, on Amazon now. Relationship Equity with Richard Walker is a production of Forbes Books.